Hey, what's good, everybody? How's doing tonight? We are live here on a Thursday night, and I tell you, every now and again, I get someone that hits me up. Say, you know what, conversation. We gotta chop it up. We gotta talk about some of the nonsense, the silly stuff. How do we say this? I'm trying not to swear because hour one we don't want to swear. We want to keep that to hour two and beyond. That's grown folk talk. But I got one such guy, and you guys might remember him because he was on the show last year. We had he's got his own podcast called Mike is Always Right. And it's one you guys definitely should check out. You should check out the past episodes, check out the stuff he's going to be putting out going forward. I've had a chance to talk to him many times over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping to talk to him come May when the RNC has their RPW have their convention in Appleton in May. So without further ado, let's bring on board here Mike Grajeda from the Mike is Always Right podcast. What's going on, brother?
Hey man, what's going on? This is definitely fun. I have a face for radio, so hopefully the live audience doesn't turn off as we speak. That's
Well,
going to be the problem.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. So sometimes I have to do this number and just kind of break out. What are you guys doing? Trust me, it's better this way. It's better for you. It's better.
Who is that troll on on the radio?
It's Pepe.
What's going on, Ed? Good to see you, buddy. How you doing, man?
Nah, we're back in the saddle, man. It's been a rough 23 and everything, but yeah, back in early February. Who was it? And I'm gonna bring up some names, and of course, this is gonna just bring up some laughter to me anyway. It was myself. Ian was doing the broadcast, and then I got into it, and then Orlando was into it, and I was like, man, I gotta really get.
They need to just give up and start dating because they got a relationship that is odd. I don't get it.
I'm just at the point now. It's like, guys, just walk away. It's like, stop. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But people gonna do what they're gonna do, and it ain't for me to judge. I got popcorn.
No, you got one person that offended the other person.
Right. I got my Milo sweet tea and I got popcorn. That is all I need.
You got sweet tea, buddy. I got bourbon. It's okay.
Oh, don't worry. I got that right here. Got one right here too. But
fly the flag, buddy.
We do love our bourbons up in here. There are so many phenomenal bourbons out there. And what I find interesting is, and I got to ask you, which one are you drinking tonight?
So tonight is a special. We getting through to payday bourbon, which is Bullet bourbon.
Yes.
Which Bullet's a good, that's a good bourbon. It's a good moderately priced bourbon. It's very, very smooth. Hint of caramel, and tonight that's what I'm drinking, and I'm digging it. I ain't gonna lie to you.
It's funny because I know one of my hobbies is studying bourbons and whiskeys in particular, and I like to also study the lower end stuff too, like your Old Thompsons, your Kesslers, which Kessler's not really whiskey or bourbon; it's like half vodka. But what I love is like when you take a look at something like Evan Williams or Zachariah Harris, it's like, dude, that is a total like budget Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And it does the same thing. I mean,
it does the same, right? It does the job.
It does the job, does it well.
Well, and what's interesting to me is, the same cats that developed bourbon, the same cats that developed whiskey are the same cats that developed cheese, right? Like, who would have thought you just have milk a little bit longer, right? And then right you have cheese. And it's amazing to me, like the process, the trial and error. How long do we age this? And then somebody said, well, that barrel would be really cool if we charred the inside of it. They're looking at him going, what the hell is wrong with you, Bob? Is there problems at home? Like, what you talking about charring this thing for, right? And then
you're a pyromaniac, aren't you?
Right? Like we should probably investigate, this guy, because what the hell? And then they char it up, they let it sit, it mellows out, and you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Maybe we should sit this here longer. Maybe we should sit this here even longer.
It's kind of like, you got to give a shout out to all the crazy people that did stuff like, who decided to throw that idea out? Who decided, you know what? I'm going to ferment this particular wheat here.
Yep.
And I'm going to try it periodically.
Yeah.
Because
the first time they were like, well, let's do it for a week.
Right.
They're like, oh, that's terrible. 2 weeks. Okay, 4 weeks.
Somebody went
3 months.
Somebody went blind in the process. That much I do know.
Oh, definitely. You have Skin Flute Willie up in the, the Cascade Mountains that was just trial and error. And he hasn't been able to see since he was 22, but he can make some good shine. I mean, what more do you want? This is the magnitude of America right here, man. That trial and error, and let's kind of figure it out. And of course, the Irish and the Scottish are like, you guys are losers. We've been doing this for generations, right? Like America, we're just figuring out like we got whiskey. The Irish are laughing their asses off at us because that's how they roll, right? I mean, yeah, it's some of the most amazing stuff when you think about just the ingenuity, right? To
Yeah.
try something and to not know what you're doing. I mean, even bringing it closer to Wisconsin, building motorcycles and beer barons starting their own distribution and getting all that, all of that stuff. I think that's probably the best representation of really what America is, right? Like we ain't gonna figure this shit out early, but we gonna figure it out eventually. And
Well,
that's probably the greatest blessing of being here in this country. And the people that are in it, like, hey, you can have the opportunity to thrive, but that's about all we're going to give you. You figure it out.
and I love that idea that, that, yeah, you piggyback off of every generation that was before you. So I mean, you got the winemakers that have been there for centuries. They have done their thing, and like, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna flip the script here a little bit and use different ingredients.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to do something, like the tequila distilleries. Now you got the
Yeah.
whiskeys and bourbons here that have been such a core part of the American experience. And yeah, you got to piggyback off of everybody else, and like you said, the opportunity is there.
Well,
It's
and
just up
and
to you to
growing
grab it.
growing off the failure.
Yeah.
Growing off the failure is to me one of the most impressive things, right?
Oh, that is the
And
greatest
learning
teacher
and not
ever.
being afraid to fail.
Yeah. Well, how many people fail and just give up? And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't get it, do you?
Well, that didn't taste good, and now we just give up, right?
Right.
And I think that speaks to what you were saying, like, every generation trying to build off of the previous generation, right? And I can honestly say that probably stopped around 96.
Well, you bring up the 90s, and I am a firm believer. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have great technology today. We can live stream. We got these wonderful little gadgets. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. I got the Infinity Gauntlet right over here. Yeah, I think it's really cool era we live in. Don't get me wrong. But I still believe that the apex of American civilization, probably human civilization, was the 90s.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that, because I think really what we have is in this new millennium, in the drive to further connect us, we've been driven further apart, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's why, and I'll just take case in point. I love Ian, I love Orlando, right? Case in point, if those guys could probably sit down in a room together, right? They
Yep.
could probably discuss it, work it out. I mean, somebody may leave with a black eye, some may leave with some broken ribs, but we're gonna solve that shit, right? And so then what do you have? Honestly, what do you have? You have Twitter or X or whatever it's called
Yep.
now. You got Facebook, you got Instagram, and I'm gonna make a 30-second video of this, and then I'm gonna reply to your 30-second video, and then I'm gonna make
Mhm.
a minute video, and then I'm gonna find this from back in 1978, and then I'm gonna talk about this with my kid and your kid, and in the guise, I say, of getting people closer, because we are closer, now, as far
In a
as
lot of ways,
technology
yeah.
connecting us, but we're so much further apart. And I think in the 90s, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It was like, if I got a problem with you, we're going to go discuss it.
Right.
We're going to probably beat the hell out of each other, but then we're going to walk out, we're going to be good. There's just this simmering beef that people have, I think, because we don't have to look each other in the face and then face the fact I may get my face punched in.
Well, and it's interesting because you remember when MySpace became a thing? What
Oh,
was it
Tom
like?
was my best friend, bro.
Tom was
Tom never let me
everybody's
down.
friend.
Tom never
Tom
wanted
was
to sell my stuff to China.
he really didn't. As
He
a matter of
didn't.
fact, he was the first for all of us. So, shout out to Tom.
Shout out to Tom.
But you remember at that point, it was just all about connecting. It was about
Yep.
you were finding people that you had lost contact with over the years.
Yep.
And then Facebook came along
Yep.
and they did a better job of it. And I don't know where it was. I feel like it was sometime around 10, 11, 12, where the algorithm just started really feeding you what you were looking for in particular. Case in point, a lot of people, no original idea of my own. World Star Hip Hop, which was huge,
Mm-hmm.
was the first to feed you all of the nonsense you were looking at. So if you were looking for police brutality videos, that's all it fed you. So
That's all you
in
got.
your and then your worldview was, well, the police must be beating everybody up.
Yep.
And I think it just further puts people in these silos, and they just think that, well, everybody thinks like I do. No, they don't. You know, the algorithm only feeds you. There's a reason why. If you got like 304s on your when you're scrolling on your shorts, you must be looking at some shady stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but you think about the Matrix 1.0, right? Matrix 1.0,
Yep.
I think clearly was things like MySpace and all of the diapers.com and all this stuff pre-bubble, right?
Yeah.
And you have all this stuff. And I think MySpace goal was just to connect me with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the stated goal. If you remember, you could take and put, like, I think it was your top 8 or your top 10, and those were the top
Oh,
people that would
yes.
come up because those were your boys, right? Those were your
Yep.
homies, right? And I think Facebook took it another level, and I think that level was just a little bit more, and unintended or maybe intended. I don't know. We can talk conspiracies all day long,
Mm-hmm.
but Facebook wasn't about connecting you with people that you already knew. It was about attempting to connect you with the
Right.
world,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah. And it's
world
funny.
is ugly, man.
Oh my God. It's so ridiculous. And it's funny because like you'll get recommendations for people that, hey, here's who you suggest. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so they got 30 friends that we have in common. All right, maybe they must be all right. And then you connect with them on some level and you're just kind of like, yeah, why exactly did I do this?
yeah, yeah. Well,
You know?
and that's just it. I mean, and I got to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because anything that is usable can be used for
Mm,
good and can be used for evil, right? I mean, I love it when you have the people that want to just rail against money and money and money and money, and they forget that the love of that money is the root of evil, right?
all right.
So if this is the only way you're living your life, if that's the only prism that you're seeing life through, is through social media, is through X and Instagram and
Mhm.
Facebook and True Social and all these different platforms, TikTok and Snapchat. If that's all you're seeing life through, you're not actually seeing life. And I think
Yep.
there is a power. So my daughter's 15, and we began to introduce her to the Matrix movies just because we really
Mhm.
wanted to screw with her mind. And watching the original Matrix movie, there's a part in there where they begin to talk about how the humans just accepted the programming. They
Yes.
they just they just accepted it. And you look at just what we've accepted, right? Because of all of this technology, and nobody's really asking questions, and the algorithms and everything. But let me ask you, would you disconnect? And people go, oh, no.
Right. And that's the funny part because if you remember when what was it, Agent Smith was breaking it down to Morpheus, when he talked about how they try to set up the perfect utopia, no
Yeah.
starvation, no disease,
And people
and
wouldn't accept it.
people wouldn't accept that
Yeah.
because the human mind needs some type of controversy, needs some type of drama or some life-threatening issue. So they came up with the current version that it has. And it's interesting because you can't just get online for a lot of people and just kind of accept it. Just, oh man, I'm gonna be on here and see some funny memes and funny videos and laugh with some people. No, I think smarter people do that. But I think that there's a group of people that just they need to have that level of drama. And for whatever reason, social media gives it to you. And I think to a great degree, yes, you see that on Facebook, especially on the various groups, but it's even worse on like Twitter. Like I can't stand Twitter, but I use it anyway, just because it's a news aggregator.
Yeah, yeah.
And Instagram, I just can't deal with it. I cannot stand Instagram.
For me, it's one of those things where I sincerely believe, I truly believe. I listen to a talk show guy in Houston called Michael Berry. If you ever listen to Michael Berry, he does this segment every now and again called "I Truly Believe." And you have to start off when you call in, "I truly believe," and then whatever you truly believe.
Right.
And I truly believe that as society continues to collapse, people that are in that generation before the internet, right?
Hmm.
Before it really got going, your Gen Xers, right?
Yep.
They're going to be the ones with the easiest ability to just, when it all collapses, to just completely push back from the table. and be done with it. Right?
So,
Because we know what life was like before that.
right.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, what did you have to do? You had to remember people's telephone numbers. Oh, you
Yeah.
have to actually give directions and say, and this is, I think, more of a this might be more a Wisconsin thing. We don't just tell you to like go to this street, go to that street. It's like, yeah, the water tower over here and take a right. And
And you go
you'll
by the
see
second quick trip and
right. You
yeah,
see the second quick trip, then there's 3 elephants over there. What elephants? What the hell? Yeah, that's a long story.
just keep going.
You'll learn about it later. Don't worry about that.
Well, we were talking. My wife and I were laughing because we were talking about the first time I ever brought my family from Texas. We
Oh, the
drove in
culture
2007.
shock.
What's that?
The culture shock.
from Texas to Wisconsin, and we drove from Texas to Wisconsin, and it was 2007. And bro, we had MapQuest. We had printed out
like
the
a pirate
directions on MapQuest, and I don't know if you remember those dark days, but you were like, if I get off this route, I don't know how to get back to that route.
right
Now, the way you have it with either Waze or Apple Maps or Google Maps or whatever, it's like, man, I could really use some food right now. And then you pull it up, it's like, what 37 different types of cuisines would you be looking for? Well, I'd like
near
sushi.
me.
Yeah, I'd like Thai
Yes.
or whatever. And it's like, this place will take it to you and you're 4 minutes out of your way. Like, it's amazing the amount of convenience that you have. But then what you're missing, and this is completely, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's just weird because I've traveled. I've traveled a lot. I've been to 45 different states, lived, worked
Yep.
in, 45 different states, been to Mexico, been to Canada, been a lot of different places. And there's something to be said, and I think you'll probably understand this, for getting lost.
Oh,
You
yes.
find the weirdest things, man, the coolest things when you get lost. And it's like we become so pattern involved in, we get here, we go there. I just need directions, pop in there, boop, and we go. Like, there's no, I'm just going to take this road and see where this goes.
Right.
That curiosity, I think, is slowly dying.
Well, it's funny, I think, because once you know your nautical direction, even if you're inland, if
Yeah.
you know that, you can eventually find home.
Yeah.
But, when I was in Hawaii, when I moved back here, even now, it's been like 10 years since I was like in the Milwaukee area. Then I go back there with everything going on last year. And I was like, holy shit, everything's different.
Yeah.
And I used to love, that's why I would find like the best hole in the wall restaurants, the best hole in the wall bars, just places to go that are off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And you're hanging with a different group of people that you normally wouldn't. And I think that was what was so great about that time was you weren't just, I'm only going to hang with people that think like me, act like me, work with me. Nah, I'm talking to some cat that does something entirely different that I would have never encountered.
Yeah.
So now when I see him on the street, because everybody crosses everybody at some point, hey, what's up? How you doing? Now you can't go anywhere without somebody saying hi to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, to that point, we've lost direction in so many ways. I mean, how many people, honestly, if you being honest, could tell me that even numbered interstates run east and west, odd numbers run north and south? Do you know how many people know that?
Yeah.
So
and it's not something I would think of. It's not something I would think of off the top of my head, but I do recall. Now that you say that, I do recall that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding why bridges have to be a minimum of 13 feet 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Because General Eisenhower wanted to be able to put tactical nuclear trucks under underpasses, so that if someone was to come and bomb us, we could put them under there and shoot missiles off.
And just shoot it right from the bridge.
And just shoot it right underneath the bridge, and you're good to go, right? Like, it's funny because people don't understand like the why behind some of those things. Why is the interstate system labeled the way it is? Interstate 10, 20, 30, 40, right? Highways 45, 69. They don't understand that because
these are the main arteries of the nation. Yeah.
Yes, we've reduced it to its most simplest form. I put in my phone, it tell me where to go.
Well, it's funny because I had to buy a new car this past year, and I'm still kind of mad about that because I didn't have a car payment.
Did you kill your old car? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Well, one of them died, and then another one took a crap right after that, like literally the same week. And the 2017, it's we got her back up and running, but the 2011 is kind of
giving up the ghost.
And when you're in the middle of nowhere, you kind of need two cars.
Yeah.
So I buy this new car, and again, like I said, I'm a little salty about that because I didn't have a car payment for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Pay this thing off a year early, very happy, very, we're feeling good about ourselves. And then we buy this new car, and it's like going on the freaking Starship Enterprise. It's all touch screen and
all the convenience.
And don't get me wrong, it's really cool, but don't ever let like an EMP go off or like some cyber hacker or something. Like that, they'll probably drive off of my car. I mean, it's a Kia, so they're probably gonna do it anyway. But like they might do it by remote with their phone or something.
Right.
A,
Well, that
a,
was the funny
a
thing.
Steam Deck.
Did you watch that movie? Oh gosh, I forget. It was the Netflix movie, the Obamas.
I did not,
Produced.
but I've heard about it.
Okay. So no spoilers here, but there's a part in the movie where society is in the midst of collapsing. You know that because that's just from the commercials that you're watching, and all of these Teslas are running into each other. They're all running into each other. And she looks on the sticker on the dash, and it's like self-driving. And they're all literally 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, boom, climbing in each other because, again, somebody has messed with the programming, right? The matrix is off, right? And again, that's one of the things that when you look at what happens if it does go down, do you know how to get around? Do you know how to look and see where does the sun set? Where does the sun rise, right? Where is north? Where is how would we get, you make your way to one of those interstates, how would you know where to go? And I think that's probably one of the things that, again, coming back to Gen X, right? We lived in this magical world before the internet. I think it wouldn't be such a big problems where you have, further generations going forward, they'd be lost. And I say that not as I'm not being ugly, but they've always lived in a world with this. If you've never lived in a world with this and now suddenly it's taken away from you, that's all you know. Now, what do you do?
Well, think about the adjustment period. I mean, Gen X is that one group of people where they were able to traverse, the digital world as well as look up the Encyclopedia Britannica and know what the Dewey Decimal System is.
Yeah.
They were the ones that went out into the field with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever, have summer camp and all the other crazy tropes that are Gen X, and they're crazy tropes because they're true. And we were able to go back and forth in those worlds. We're still the same generation, by the way, that can go to a bar, go to a restaurant, and actually talk to you without having to like text you while you're sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this already a couple of times, and I look at what's going on, and I feel like there's a collapse in how we're doing things as a society. Now, I don't think this collapse is going to be, Mad Max style or anything else like that.
Oh, come on, man. I already bought my assless chaps.
I know. I got 2 pair upstairs. One for later tonight and one for
and that was the last time Mike was ever on Ed's show.
I even got the boomerang in Mohawk. That was such a good movie.
But you're right. And I think for, my wife and I, literally, I'm not joking, probably about a half hour before, you and I sitting to talk and doing the show, we were sitting going over some of our collapse plans.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to be back to, Mad Max, like you had said, but I think there's definitely going to be a time. There is going to be I think a collapse where our monetary system completely collapses, our government completely collapses, right? The only thing that I'm really curious about, and I'll get your opinion on it, is how long does that last? And that's such a difficult thing. These different groups that I'm involved in, and Facebook and Instagram and all these different places, the jury's still out. I think a lot of people know that a correction, or a collapse is what some people would call a correction.
A correction, right?
Is coming.
Is it a bloodbath?
Is it? It's gonna be a bloodbath.
It's gonna be.
Just remember, if it's gonna be a bloodbath, then they're gonna put you back in chains, like Joe said. I think that was probably the stupidest thing that people jumped on, because when you don't understand things in context, like I can tell you, Ed, this will be a sad, shocking event. I have used the N-word so many times it's not even funny. I mean, I'm about to get canceled for it because I've used it so many times. But then when you understand in context, because it was the 90s and we were all singing along with Biggie and Tupac and Snoop, right? Like, I mean, context is so important. But what's going to happen? What I will tell you this. I see the right going absolutely crazy if 45 doesn't win in November. But then I see the
Yep.
left going absolutely crazy if 46 doesn't win in November.
Well, and
So then
it's
where are we at? We're in a no-win situation.
well, and
What
that's the
what then?
sad part because okay, so you got lots to unpack right there. If we look at the 24 election, and I think you are 100% correct. You're 100% correct in that the right's not going to accept Biden winning, and the left isn't going to accept that. Look at everything they're doing to Trump right now.
Yeah.
Look at all the, the charges, civil, the criminal charges, all of that. It's all garbage. Anybody with a brain knows that it's all garbage and it's all set up.
Yep.
And why are they trying to do that? They're trying to bankrupt the man from being able to run.
Yeah.
And of course, I think it's funny when I was like, well, he's not as rich as he says he is. Name one rich person that has $500,000. They think that this is like Scrooge McDuck or something like that.
Well,
Like
who
he's
who
running
was
around
it?
swimming in dollars.
Who was it that I was reading about? I think it was a Milwaukee Bucks player. And it was like the middle of last year. They were talking about something and they were saying that the guy literally has like 400 different bank accounts.
Yeah.
Why? Because he only puts up to the
$250.
$250,000.
Yep.
Because if something happens, that money's insured, right?
FDIC insured. Absolutely.
Why the hell would you keep $1 million, $500,000? Because here's the deal. Rich people don't get rich by working hard. They work
Right.
hard and then they understand how to put their money to work for them.
Right.
So they ain't like Scrooge McDuck back in the day jumping in the money bin, right? I mean, that's just, that world doesn't exist. I'm taking my money, I'm putting it out into the world, and I'm making money on top of my money, on top of my money, on top of my money. So
Right.
I think it's so hilarious when people are like, well, I guess he doesn't have the money. He does. No, he's got it, but it ain't liquid. And that's the problem.
And people don't seem to understand that. It's like Elon Musk doesn't have billions of dollars. He has billions of dollars in assets.
Yep.
And I think that's very different. Now, to answer your other question, how long does a correction last? Now, if you think about it, go back to the dark ages. How much technology, how much medicine, how many things were lost during that era?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, the Romans had plumbing, and now all of a sudden everybody's pooping down a hole and throwing it out their windows. And
yeah.
there was refrigeration on a very rudimentary level.
Mm-hmm.
They were running aqueducts, and all that somehow got lost. Well, you wipe out what was it, a third of the planet at that particular time for the plague.
Yeah. That's why it's called the Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages, indeed. I do have to wonder, though, with technology being where it's at today, do we get to the point where we go back to the 1800s, that type of lifestyle with some type of computerization that's, again, very rudimentary? Do we have a basic internet like Internet 1.0? Does communication stay
Are
down?
you talking about the dialect?
Well, we might have the AOL might be having a resurgence.
AOL's going to start sending out those discs again, bro.
Right,
start
exactly.
getting those discs in the mail again.
But I have to wonder if there is some type of societal collapse. If there is, we're on the verge of, World War III, some type of civil war here, national divorce, however you want to frame it. Do we go back to more smaller communities that work together rather than acquiesce to a larger state? That's a tough question. Or let me throw this here. Let me throw this here. Is all of this leading on a road to Fermi's paradox? Fermi's paradox essentially states that a civilization can advance to such a level. Well, let's put it this way. There are other advanced civilizations around the universe, but they will never cross, because when one particular civilization reaches a technological point, they end up, they go extinct, whether through war, disease, take your pick, but they basically got too smart for themselves. So by the time that a civilization hits that point where they might say have interstellar travel, they will eventually wipe themselves out. And that's why nobody ever crosses paths with each other. I probably upset all the conspiracy people, though, by the way, that, well, the aliens came and built the pyramids, but did they really?
It's amazing how advanced we are as a society. It's amazing how we're launching Falcon X, rockets. We're talking about getting back on the moon. We're talking about colonizing Mars, right? We're talking about all of this stuff. Yet the fact of the matter remains, 3 days. If commerce doesn't move, trucks don't move, ships don't move, there's enough stuff on the shelf at your store for 3 days. And after that 3 days, I'm going to tell you, the most law-abiding, patriotic, God-fearing American is going to be doing some shit. Why? Because their babies are hungry, because their wife is hungry, because now the refrigerator won't turn on because there's no electricity in your house because you don't have a way to provide that, right? And now you're going to go do some next level horrible things, because you want to. So it's amazing how sophisticated we are, yet how rudimentary we can ultimately be destroyed. I was watching a video the other day, and I don't know if you've seen it, a grid down power up video. I think it was Dennis Quaid that did it. Your great video talking about not only the sophistication of an EMP, which would be a man-made EMP, where literally you could have something that goes on 200 miles up in space and it affects us, right, with a nuclear launch, but also just a solar EMP coming from the sun that nobody knows when that stuff is going to happen. And the fact that our grid system and our electricity that has provided so much for us is so susceptible to that. And it's like, okay, now we got 3 days. Things aren't moving. We can't communicate. We can't talk. We can't do all of this. And you have society that literally launches into chaos. I mean, think about just how many people die within 3 or 4 days that are in hospitals, that are on ventilators, or they're on equipment, or
life support, diabetics.
Home. Yeah, exactly. They can't get that stuff. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives that are gone in 7 days, right?
Well, that's the argument when Greta Thunberg's over here talking about how she demands that we stop all fossil fuel. How dare you? I gotta get that clip. But she demands that. Well, okay, Greta. I mean, I guess if you want to be the #1 mass murderer on the planet, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
Because how many people need their medications refrigerated? And I default to the diabetic right off the top.
Yeah.
So, you take a look at that. The people that need things, the people with the pacemakers, the people that have other things, dialysis, you name it, they're gone in less than a month's time. And this is assuming too, as far as the grocery stores are concerned, if I worked at a grocery store, if I was a manager of a grocery store, you think I'm going to open the grocery store for anybody?
Oh, yeah.
At that point, I know everything's going south.
Yep.
I take what I can take.
And look at what history has basically pointed out to us. I mean, let's be really honest about, societal collapse. When you have a collapse to a certain point, then what you're getting is, I'm a cop, I'm a firefighter, I'm a paramedic, and I'm sorry, I'm heading home. Why? Right. Look at Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
Look at how many people from New Orleans Police Department that swore to protect and serve. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying they're people. And they were like, nope, I'm done. I'm heading
at the end of the day, they had to look out for their family.
Yep. So now, beep, 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 I'm going to call 911. You get a busy signal.
Right.
What? Right. Well, and that to me underscores just really how fragile the system is. Right.
Well, let's go back just a little sooner here in time. 2020. I mean, here we are. It is March 21st. And I'll never go on vacation again, because last time I went on vacation, I went to Wisconsin Dells, and
why?
Yeah, they shut everything down.
Why?
Damn you, Tony Evers.
Damn you, Tony Evers.
Yeah, and I want to get to Tony here in a little bit, but March 17th, and I remember that. Everybody should remember that day. I mean, St. Patty's Day, but March 17th, 5 p.m., everything got shut down.
Yep.
And what ended up happening? There was a run on toilet paper. There's a run on all kinds of food and all this other stuff. And you look at what people were doing then. They were fighting. How are you going to fight over it? And I got to wonder, how the hell is it toilet paper is always the first to go? In America, it was toilet paper when COVID happened. When, what was it? Was it Brazil? Hugo Chavez. What country was he?
Venezuela.
That's what it was. When their economy collapsed, toilet paper. I mean, go back and look at, literally, they had a run on toilet paper.
Yep.
And I'm like, what, are you trading this? Is it like the new Bitcoin? What are we doing here? Is this gold, silver?
You know what's funny is
You know,
my grandfather. My grandfather actually had a line that he would say all the time, and when we were growing up, he would say, "Always buy toilet paper when it's on sale. Why? Because you'll always need to wipe your ass."
it's true. That's facts. And
You
I
know,
guess
for us,
they knew there was a lot of shit going down, so that's why everybody went and got the toilet
right?
paper.
Well, but I'll tell you this. You know, you bring up an interesting point because when that was going on, my family was actually in the midst of purchasing the house that we have right now.
Okay.
So we were going to close the day that everything got shut down, and my title company called me and said, "Listen, I know you're supposed to be here. I think it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, whatever. Come in the afternoon. I was going to go to work and do what I got to do, and then
Right.
come sign the papers." And they said, "If you can get her, we're going to open up early, 7:30 in the morning. We don't know what's going to happen when everything shuts down.
Right.
We got to get this in the books." I said, "Okay." I'm gonna tell you, Ed, I probably signed a mortgage for the house. I probably signed for two other mortgages. I may have bought an aircraft carrier. I may have promised myself to Saddam Hussein at the time. I don't know, because I literally walked in. They just had all the little things.
Yeah,
I'm just
everything you
signing.
got signed.
I'm just
Not
signing.
reading a thing.
Right? They're giving me keys. The pandemic is killing everybody, and sent me on about my way. But I remember the next day going to Costco, and what
Hmm.
I was from my family, because at the time my father-in-law had Alzheimer's, my mother-in-law is a little bit older. We didn't have our youngest yet. I was kind of the designated survivor. It was like, you're the one that goes out and you're the one that gets stuff.
Right.
And I went to Costco and I killed it. I don't think I've ever spent that much money at Costco ever, because the anticipation was, we ain't going to be able to go out again. These places are going to
Right.
close, whatever the case may be. And that taught me a very, very valuable lesson. Like, if I'm trying to do this behind the eight ball, it ain't
Oh,
going to happen in the future. I got to be
there,
ready for this stuff.
there is a phrase, and I picked this up from a group of they call themselves it's not a neighborhood watch or anything like that, but basically they work together. They're all about civil defense. They're all about, teaching things. It's a group of preppers. And one of the things I remember, one of the guys who was in charge of it, he would often talk to people about, is like, it's better to be 2 years too early, 3 years too early, whatever it is, because none of us have a crystal ball. I mean, my magic 8 ball is right over here and it don't work. But it's better to be 2 years too early than one day too late.
Yep.
And I fear there's a lot of people that just assume, and I was one of them, going back to like 2008, 2009, 10. I remember, you just go to the grocery store, it's there. And there are people today that, well, why do we need all these farms? We got grocery stores. It's
Yeah.
like, are you really that stupid? The internet, by the way, is supposed to make us smarter. It hasn't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where do you think food comes from?
Yeah. Well, and I think, for me, the lesson was, if you're preparing for a societal collapse, right? And you get it wrong. Let's just say we get it wrong. And
Yeah.
we're talking, and we got another 100 years, right? This country literally outlives us.
Sounds
Okay.
great.
Great. That's awesome. I'm happy about that. My kids have a great place. My grandkids have a great place, right? That's awesome. But let's just say, society doesn't collapse, but at the end of the year, the economy is such that my employer has to let me go. My
Hmm.
employer, hey, listen, we're sorry, man. We're paying you good salary. We just can't do it anymore. That to me isn't going to break me. Why? Because I got food. I
Right.
got meat. I got all of those things, to where if I didn't have to, if I couldn't work or something would happen, right? So how many people, if you lost your job and maybe you got to go a week or
Right.
10 days without that first unemployment check, right?
And
How many
that's
people will be
innocent.
sweating it? How many people couldn't put gas in their car? How many people couldn't pay their bills? How many people couldn't even eat
Right.
because of that? Because they're always just, oh no, I got a job, everything's fine, everything's good. What if it isn't?
Well, and that's the sad part. Everybody's just one, you're one check away from starting the foreclosure process if, you know, assuming you don't own your own home or you're not renting.
Yeah,
And, with the price of, of everything due to inflation, again, are you budgeting properly? Are you
yeah,
figuring these things out? What
yeah,
happens if, God forbid, like you said, you lose a job? And that's a reality. It can happen. It is happening right now. And one of the reasons why the Federal Reserve isn't really doing much is because they actually want to see, and that's why they're trying to bring down the inflation number. But they also want to see more job losses. They're not saying it directly as such.
But that's what their policy is basically banking on. Their policy is
Right.
banking on the fact that we have a massive jump in unemployment within the next 6 to 9 months.
Right.
Bar none.
And that's what they're looking for. And then, of course,
Yep.
they're going to try to reverse that. We're looking possibly June, July. But here's the other thing, too. We got a snowstorm coming up here. And it's not going to be the worst snowstorm, but let's just say that's one of those mega blizzards that come out and you're locked in your house for the next 3 days. What do you do?
Or this is the thing in my community, and I love the community that I live in. I don't necessarily like where I live in that I've been to so many different places.
Yeah.
I like the beach. I like, you know what I mean? I like,
yeah,
I like
of course.
places, right? So I'm not knocking Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a great place to live. It's been very good to me. But in my community, a good stiff fart will take out the power grid. Right. And that's
Absolutely.
the sad fact, because, either we're not taking care of our trees that are near our power lines, or when you get the freeze thaw, then you get a little bit of ice, right?
Yep.
Just the weight of that ice on your power lines, you're screwed, right? So to your point, you're exactly right. You're snowed in for 3 days and you lose power.
Mm-hmm.
What now?
Yeah. Where are your emergency blankets? Where's your emergency food? What can you cook without heat? Or do you have proper propane tanks? Do you have a generator? Not everybody's going to have a generator.
Yep.
Do you have it properly? Do you have first aid? What do you do if the ambulances can't get to you?
Yep.
Here, I'll give you a good example of something that happened this past summer. Probably about 4 miles east of where I'm sitting right now, there was a vehicle that swerved out the road and it took out a power line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it shouldn't be that big a deal. However, this power line, something must be really central to it because it took out half of 2 counties. It took out half of Waushara County for its power, and it took out half of Green Lake County for its power. And I remember I was driving around, going to my various accounts, and I'm like, "Yeah, what happened here, man? Y'all not paid the electric bill?" And I'm at like one of these big box stores, and they're like, "No, somebody hits us." Like, pull up their Facebook and they show me. I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here, really?"
Yeah.
One, boom.
Yep.
And it did all this. Now, to the Public Works credit, they had it back up within like 6 hours.
Yeah.
But it was like, wow. One accident, 2 counties.
Yep.
That's a lot of land.
Well, think about just a couple weeks ago, Ed, when AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile, people were losing their minds because their phones weren't working. Absolutely losing their minds. Now imagine your phone doesn't work. You can't charge it. And you go to flip on the lights in your house and you got nothing.
Well, and that's the funny part too, is again, people are so dependent upon technology. People are so dependent upon, their phones. And I'm guilty of that myself because, well, all my coordination, all my schedule, everything's on here. My work is all done through an iPad. And we got Manchester, England up in here.
Manchester, England.
Yeah, we're blowing up in this joint. I love it.
Man, you are worldwide, Ed Delgado.
I
and David King. I mean,
Pitbull might have
Mayor of Milwaukee right there.
Yeah, we got to talk about that race here. I don't know if I know Rustin probably. I love
Rustin's
this guy.
on. Rustin's down in my hood, man. Good to see you, Rustin.
Rustin be dropping some knowledge and stuff, and I don't always agree with some of his positions, but I can never say that he doesn't think them through.
You want to talk? Yeah, critical thinking. You know what's interesting is that is a skill that I think sometimes is just really missing. Is critical thinking.
Well, and critical thinking, and then being able to listen to somebody else without feeling insulted because they don't agree with your position.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen way too much of that here.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's the possibility of where you and I don't agree on something, whatever this is, right? But that doesn't mean I gotta hate you. That doesn't mean you should hate me. We just disagree. I mean, it's crazy, right? I don't understand some of the negativity that comes from the fact that we're having a disagreement on policy, right? I mean, hey, we're talking about Biden administration right now putting the corporate tax rate back to 28%, right? And people going, well, it was 21%. And people go, oh, I want it to be 25%. Okay. I mean, hey, that's a difference in policy. It doesn't mean you got to hate me. I got to hate you. I don't understand that sometimes.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think part of it is that there is not a shared reality. And what I mean by this is we understand that corporations pay the appropriate amount of taxes that they need to pay. We understand that people like Jeff Bezos only makes $80,000 a year because that's the salary that he's given. Now he's gotten bonuses and everything else like that, but the rest of his wealth is tied up in like Amazon stock and other things like that. And he's not allowed to sell his Amazon stock based upon current laws and things and other things as such.
And this is the tax code that our legislators wrote. You can't hate the player, you gotta hate the game.
So what does the left end up saying? Well, Biden said it during the State of the Union. They need to pay their fair share of income tax. Income tax? What are you considering income tax?
Yeah.
Are you saying because I made a sale, that's income? Not by definition, it's not.
Yeah.
It is profit to the company.
Yeah.
But, now they got to deal with, capital gains, other things like that. Their various investments, the land, leases, depreciation. That's how the code is written. The left does not understand that because they're told this line about they need to pay their fair share. Of course, fair share is never told what that number is.
Yeah.
And I think it's
just a blanket thing that they throw out there.
Here, Rustin has a really, really good question here. What is the most important good in a blackout? Bet your guess is wrong.
Bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon. I mean, you can barter bourbon. You can get a cheap date with bourbon. You can ignore a lot of pain with bourbon. Bourbon is the elixir of the gods. I mean,
that's right. I mean,
God gave it to us. Just like Smokey said, God put this for me and for you. No, it's God given.
Weed is from the earth. Smokey from the earth.
So is bourbon.
I think you're talking about, what was, God, I can't remember the guy's name. He was the Godfather's Pizza guy. He just recently passed away. He ran for president, and his was the 999. Remember him? Herman Cain. Herman Cain. Herman Cain's deal was the 999, right? And it basically made your corporate income tax, your personal income tax, and your property taxes all 999, right?
Yep.
And so I think we have a tax system, and to all the people, salt. I can get that.
I can get that.
To all the people that say taxation is theft, I get you. I understand.
I'm with it.
I'm with it. I get that concept. I understand it. But I would answer this. How then do things get paid for? I don't understand that end of it. So what do we work towards? The system that we all know is broken right now, right? Do we work towards a consumption tax? What happens to the goods and services? If you've ever been to a third world country, right, and you've seen that there's no grid infrastructure, there's no stoplights, there's no nothing. How does that stuff get funded? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not saying I know the answer and you do this, but what I'm saying is this: an effective tax rate has to be fair and equitable for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that you're not paying more than me and we're both experiencing the goods and services in the same way. Like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I got two daughters right now. I got a 15-year-old and I got a 2.5-year-old. And we just made the decision. Yes, tequila is the nectar of the gods, but bourbon is what was put there first. I see Lori's comment there. Yes, Lori, you were almost right in the trinity of alcohol. But it's like this. I don't want anybody to pay more than they have to, but gosh damn, they don't do any good with the money that I send them. I would not mind paying more if I knew the money was being spent properly.
Absolutely.
That's my whole argument. My kids don't use the school system that we have in my community right now. I sure as hell am still paying for it.
Absolutely. And there's no way you're going to get out of that.
Ain't no way I'm going to get out of that. So then what do? You look at the races that are coming up in the spring elections. You look at races that are coming up in the general. You look at the school boards. You look at your county boards. You look at things like that. The completely non-sexy races, right? This is the people that are grunting it out in the pits, taking care of our communities. And you got to get involved in that sort of stuff, because are they going to expand? Are they going to contract? Are they getting rid of stuff? What's the tax rate going to be? What are our kids getting for the taxes that we're paying? Because it ain't good when you look at some of the things we're talking about. Most kids can't read to a 4th grade level. That includes the seniors in high school. That ain't good, man. What are we getting for our money?
It's so funny because and I'm like you, I from a philosophical perspective, the idea of taxation is theft. I agree 100%. Why the hell should the government be taking 30% out of my money?
Damn,
why do I have to also pay?
You must have good accountants.
No, I ain't got no accountant. That's probably why they're taking all that money. But,
right?
Whether it's 25, 30, 35, whatever the tax, the tax bracket you're in, why should I have to give that up? Why should I have to give up more of that to the state?
Yep.
And so that's where I agree, because like you said, they're misspending the money. They're giving it out to, all these feel-good projects and everything. And I am a big believer that a civil society does have a fiduciary duty to take care of those who can't take care of themselves. The problem is that when you become literally the poverty pimp, I don't want to fund that. I'm not interested in that. Let me do more with my money, because I can make more. I can do that. I can make my money work.
Yeah.
So when I hear the more libertarian crowd, and I have a lot of libertarian leanings, but when I hear them say that, well, what did they do back in the day? They had roads, they had fire services. Yeah, but they also lived like with a town of 300 people. They had a bar fight. There was a duel, all that good stuff that went along with that. That's a very different
really
world.
didn't have income tax as we know it until the Second World War. The Second World War is when it really took off, because we were funding the war, and then it just never stopped.
It never stopped.
But look at what you get out of that. We got the baby boom generation. We got roads, we got bridges, we got schools, we got communities, we got hospitals, we got all that stuff.
And go back a little before that, because it was during the Depression, and I'm not a big FDR fan by any stretch of the imagination, but all of the projects between, like you said, the bridges, the buildings,
the Hoover Dam,
all of that was as a result of, hey, we got to get jobs here, so let's just make some shit up. Let's just do something.
It's the S word.
Fine.
It's the S word, Ed.
Well,
it is socialism.
Yeah, it is, and unfortunately, it has produced a lot of negatives. But if we look at what they did there, it was just a snowball at that point, and then it just grew more and more and more, and then we became this nanny state. Now, that's the problem I think we're talking about that we have.
Yeah,
it's not that we don't want to pay taxes; it's that, well, if we're going to pay taxes, we live in this civil society that we live in now. Make it work.
Yeah. Well, and don't tell me, don't tell me, right? Because I as I am aging, I'm turning 45 next month.
Oh God, don't talk to me about aging. I just hit another century or two just a few days ago. So there's that.
And I looked at it like I've really been looking at retirement over the last couple of years. Okay, so I wasn't thinking of retirement in my 20s. No way, man.
No.
I wasn't even really thinking of retirement in my mid to early 30s. But now I'm getting older, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, what does retirement look like for me? And then I began reading reports. It's like, hey, listen, Social Security is going to be insolvent in 9 years. Unless we do something, Social Security's gone. And I'm sorry, bullshit. Social Security is an entitlement. No.
Put it. That's like saying unemployment. That's like saying unemployment is an entitlement.
Yeah. It blows my mind. So I'm all for helping and doing what we're doing, but when you get people, and I don't know if you saw the Instagram video the other day, because I know you hate Instagram, but I said the other day they were asking, I believe it was the O'Keefe Foundation, they were asking these ladies, and they were like, hey, you're staying in that hotel? Yeah, where are you from? And they listed off a couple different countries. Are you paying for your meals? No. You paying for your baby diapers? No. You paying for your formula? No. Oh, they're giving us everything we need, 3 meals a day, and we're getting and free internet and free phones and free everything. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, hold on, I'm scratching out my existence here. For
And you're
what?
paying for that.
And we're paying for that. But you're going to tell me in 9 years, Social Security is going to be insolvent. And when I retire, what I've put into that, I can't even get out.
Well, you better hope that you still have a home and some squatter doesn't come in there and take it over.
Yeah.
Sure, you've seen that going on.
I have seen that going around. And that's what, it's funny you say that, because my mother-in-law was like, we need to put a sign up and, make sure people know. And I'm like, isn't it a shame that it's come to that?
Well,
Isn't it
and
a
that's the
shame that
sad part.
we're literally being invaded, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of people talk about the census of 2020, right? And the back and forth fight that 45 had with basically everybody, because he's saying, no, you only count citizens. And they're saying, no, we count everybody.
Right.
Why are they counting everybody? Because if you count everybody, you don't have to worry about population decreases. I'm looking at you, California. I'm looking at you, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you, Illinois. You can keep all your same congressional seats or grow them, right? Because you got 98.6s that are there. So we're going to be a sanctuary city. I love the mayor of Denver. We just can't do this. The mayor of New York. We're
New
racist.
York,
We
yeah.
don't have the. But you know what? You're going
Stop
to
the
take all those
cap.
people in and you're going to count them. Why? Because you don't want to lose your representation, and you don't want to have the red states where everybody is moving to. You don't want to have them get more representation.
Well, here's the killer. At its current trajectory, if it keeps up the way that it is, there will be 13 more congressional districts that will be counted among the in the census, going based on the numbers. And the majority of them, if not all, will probably be Democrat elected regions. And that would probably take down the amount of people that are constituents that are in a congressional district, because I think right now it's around 750,000 that are going to be that are in a congressional district. So
Yeah.
depending on where you're at, that number is going to go down significantly.
Yeah. And that's where, again, when you talk about policies, and you talk about, in my community, they're talking about the refugees being resettled in here.
Oh, that's going to be
From
that's huge. Yeah.
It's huge, right? Because not only are you wanting to resettle them, and basically we're all paying for it. Let's be honest. And listen, this is a great, wonderful country full of immigrants. I actually was able to Ancestry.com see my grandmother. Her name was Eva Grajeda, and I saw the document from when she crossed the border, when she attained citizenship, when she had my. You see all those things, like, wow, this is amazing. Did it legally, okay?
Yep.
And so you hear all these wonderful stories, but this isn't the story that we're going through right now. We're literally being invaded.
Yeah.
We're being invaded on a level that is unprecedented. And I don't know if you saw the report the other day, but they were talking about Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Oh yeah, with barbecue.
Dominican Republic's like, oh,
that wild.
No. We building that border wall.
No, we ain't putting up with that. What y'all got in Haiti, you keep that over there. You keep them barbecue. Yeah, you do that over there.
Which again, Haiti is just a long line in Iraq, Afghanistan, now Israel, now Ukraine. Let's add Haiti to the mix and take some more people from there. We don't know who you are, St. Croix County, my county, talking about the refugees. We're not vetting them. We're just bringing them in here, and we're paying for them. What?
And how many of them are military age fighting men?
Oh yeah,
that are in their teens
I was
30s.
watching a video. I was watching a video the other day, and it was like all of these guys were lined up. First and foremost, they all had nicer luggage than I do, and I have nice luggage. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't no peasant, right? Nice luggage, okay, and not a drop of sweat. Nothing looked out of place. They had not gone through the harrowing journey that they come to this country just so that they can pick lettuce and make. No. Remember the 90s when Clinton was talking about sealing our border? We can't take them all, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly this guy looks like moderate, almost conservative based on what's going on now. You got a bunch of military age males that are coming in, and they're like, well, where'd you come from? China. Where'd you come from? Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon. Name me a horrible country in Africa. We got those guys too.
And
right?
you go find them. Absolutely.
And what are they doing? They're literally jumping on planes, landing in Mexico, walking across.
And the worst part about it is,
I'll take my money now. I'll take my welfare now.
Well, and I think the worst part about it is that the Biden administration using CPS is taking these people and shuffling off to other cities around the country.
Yep.
And even worse than that is they knowingly know what's going on with the human trafficking problem that's going on, and they're exacerbating, they're aiding that.
Yep.
So at what point do we say, okay, enough is enough? And this is where I think a lot of people got it twisted in 2022 was they got so caught up. And I'm going to talk more on the conservative side here in Wisconsin. They got so caught up in their fields that they didn't look at the bigger picture and realize that people like Tony Evers should not have been rewarded for 2022, that they should not have had this philosophy that if we don't get what we want, then fine, let the Democrat win. It's all the same to us. I think what ended up happening too is they were so blind to their own issue that they still sit here and talk about, well, the left and the right, they're one and the same. It's like, if you see that as one and the same, then I have a lot of questions about you and your ability to delineate good and evil.
Yep. Well, and you and I had this conversation before, and those same people want a chair at the table that they attempted to burn down.
Right.
So what now, guys? Well, my guy didn't get picked, so I'm just going to stay home. Okay.
And how's that working out for your best interest?
Yeah, you're guaranteeing that you're not going to win.
Well, and it's funny because I think if you look back over the last, or 24 now, I'm going to go, 20, 30 years, anywhere in between there. The Christian conservative was the poster child for that. Mm-hmm. I don't like this candidate because he's not religious enough. So they stayed home, causing elections, not realizing that the liberal incrementalism of that time was infringing upon them. Now it's like, it's not incrementalism. It's just, you're going to do this. Well, our church doesn't matter. You're going to do this if you want to maintain your tax status.
Yep. Well, let me tell you this. Let me piss off a lot of people. A lot of people going to be pissed off.
Here it comes. Get your raincoats, ladies and gentlemen.
Here it goes. If we are going to move forward, we have to govern, right? I'm talking conservatives. If we're going to govern, we have to move forward. We have to win elections. Okay. Let me tell you what you're going to hear in 2024. Abortion, abortion, abortion.
Oh,
abortion,
God, I
abortion,
hope not.
Abortion, 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 abortion. That's what you're going to hear going forward. And this nonsense, and I say nonsense from a political standpoint, not from my own personal beliefs. My own personal beliefs, I will tell you this: every life is important. Every life is precious. I think that, we should have nothing as far as abortion is concerned. But I also know that is not something that helps us to win elections. Okay.
Yep.
So when you talk about what should the abortion 15 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever the case may be, right? There needs to be something that comes out that says, listen, this is what you're going to do. And what I've heard very, very much is 15 weeks. Okay. Yep. Let's just say for shits and giggles, everybody, let's say 15 weeks. But then I think it's up to us as the conservatives to basically mandate so much money into things like adoption.
Yep.
Right. Which is all kinds of expensive. I have an adopted child. I know a little bit about what that looks like.
Right. You have to provide the alternatives. Yep. Absolutely.
You have to provide the alternative. And when the Dobbs decision came out, you go back to the show that I had, and I talk about the Dobbs decision. I talk about, this, and I say, listen, this isn't even the end of this. What do we have to do? We have to make it to where anybody who would want an abortion has so many options to have that child that even though the law exists, they're taken care of in such a way to where that baby is born.
Yep.
You make it a complete non-issue. But all of these people are saying, well, it needs to be just completely outlawed. You can't win on that. Well, how do you know? Because I've been around on this planet for over 40 years, I've watched elections, I understand polls, and I understand how people vote. All you're going to hear in this election cycle with 45 and 46, abortion, 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 fascism, abortion, 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 fascism. That's all you're going to hear. If you take that off the table.
Well, and I thought it was interesting in 22 when we looked at the governor's races and the lieutenant governors talking. And there was a lot of people, and I get it, and I'm on board with you. Exactly what you said. I'll echo it. I think abortion is abhorrent. I think it's horrible. But I have now gotten to the point, and I talked about this on Tuesday, where I no longer care. Fine, abortions for everybody. Let's go. Let's just go to it. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to have left people. They're going to go have abortions. They're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 abortions. And then they're going to wonder, they're going to find a man, or they're going to settle for a man. And the man's going to be some emaciated beta cuck. And they're going to get this dude. And she's going to say, you know what? Hey, Jimmy, come on, time to have a baby. Well, they're going to try. And she's going to be really like ultra mad because she really doesn't want to keep doing this with him. And then she's going to go to the doctor, try for IVF, because, now IVF is a new buzzword here for women's health.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly that's
on board. Okay, fine. And doctors be like, I'm sorry, we can't do this because, well, your uterus is all scraped up.
We've scraped your uterus more than 94. Okay.
We really can't do this. And unfortunately, you're now infertile. This is going to become a war of attrition because liberals are going to do this to such a degree that they're going to mess themselves up either physically by, getting scraped out, or by taking all these pills and all this other, abortion pills and whatnot. And what's going to happen? Conservatives, they're going to start having more kids because they're not going to go out and have abortions. No, I feel you.
Nah, they're like rabbits.
Right. They just want, go forth and multiply. By all means, do your thing. But I feel you, though. All life is precious. They should all be defended. But you know what? If you're swimming out there and I'm trying to rescue you and you keep fighting me, I'm going to let you go. At this point, it's like, do you? Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to die off, and you're going to die off because of your own actions and your own beliefs.
Well, and
it's no longer a battle to fight. Like when Jonathan Wickman was out there talking about, well, if she goes for an abortion, she needs to go to jail. Why?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You're thinking it's some form of homicide, but no, let them do their thing. And then let them also live with the consequences of their decisions too.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, I value life. I'm and it's interesting because I've talked to people before and they're like, I can't believe you hold that stance. And I'm like, why? Because it's a stance that makes sense. Yeah. If you don't win elections, you don't rule, you don't govern, therefore things don't get done. Why is it? I think it was close to 300,000 people decided that they could pull that lever for Ron Johnson in 22, but they just couldn't pull it for Tim Michels.
Right. And if you notice how close that election for Ron Johnson was, I mean, it should not have been that close. It should not have been
that close.
With a bad candidate on the Democrat side, Ron eked out a win.
Yep.
And I think, like you said, you look at, well, and I'll say it, Michels was a bad candidate. He's a bad candidate, didn't know how to, swat away the carpetbagger allegations. And of course, the abortion issue was, I think, and Orlando Owens and I had talked about this. It was more of an issue than I thought. Orlando saw it as a bigger issue. I did not. And it was interesting because, well, the Dobbs decision really did screw things up in 22.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the red wave everyone predicted. But then again, if you go back a little further before a lot of predictions, the initial ones were Republicans will take the House. That's all they're going to get. And it'll be marginally too.
Yep. And what you have is, I will say this internally in Wisconsin, and then, because I have family in Texas, it was the patriot groups battling themselves for who could be the most conservative.
Oh my goodness.
And then you wanted this guy, that guy. Well, now you're all hurt, your butt hurt and you're pissed off and you're not voting because he's not as conservative as you thought. But we all know this guy over here is just fixing to run our state into the ground. But either you stayed home or you couldn't possibly get behind this guy because he wasn't your guy. And that's right. That's a tough pill to swallow, man. That's a really tough pill to swallow. And I think that's where, what the hell are we doing here? What are we doing here?
And that was the sad part because, I'm all for primarying people. Don't get me wrong. If you think that your representative is not doing a good enough job, primary him. Absolutely.
Or just don't do endless recall efforts.
Well, we're about to get there here. But primary your guy. Absolutely do it. But get a good candidate. Don't get some subpar candidate with an ego issue. Don't get, don't sit here and bitch about how much he's the boogeyman. Why don't you paint a picture? And that's why I think the Adam Steen Robin Voss election went. It was painting Robin Voss as the boogeyman, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Doesn't matter, because I know the other side did not paint a better picture. You didn't tell what were you going to do different, how you were going to be more influential, how by taking out the Speaker of the Assembly, you were going to make things better, knowing that you weren't going to be the Speaker. It would have been the next guy.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we saw in that race specifically is a microcosm of what we're going to get in 2024. Because here's the deal: in 2024, we are not going to get any answers to any questions. We're not, because we're not going to have debates. It is in nobody's interest for either 45 or 46 to debate themselves, right? So what are you really getting? You're not getting clear policy positions on different things. All you're getting is that guy's bad. That guy's bad. That guy's bad. And you're going, okay, well, that guy's bad. But you know what? In like the last 2 weeks, gas has gone up like 25 cents. Hey, I was going to find, some beef because I, wanted a steak the other night, and I noticed it was up 26%.
Yeah.
Hey, and I noticed that there seems to be a shit ton of people that are dying of fentanyl that's coming over our southern border. And all you hear is, this guy is bad, right? Or you hear fascism. Right? And so are we going to get on a massive election federal level, are we going to get any answer to questions? No, because you're probably not going to have any debates. Why? Because as soon as Trump says 2020 was stolen, Biden can go, well, you were in place during that election, pal. Right? As soon as Trump says COVID did this, all Biden has to do is look at it and go, Operation Warp Speed.
Absolutely.
Right. So you and here's the problem, and here another reason why people are going to hate me is because we can't ask any questions of our candidate. Because if you ask questions of your candidate, you're a bad person.
Well, you're not loyal. You're
not loyal. Exactly.
Oh,
and I'm sorry. He's got questions that need answered that are not going to be answered. And I will specify this 100 times over. I voted for the guy in 16. I voted for the guy in 20. I'll probably vote for the guy in 24, right?
Absolutely.
But here's the deal. We have such short memories. I ask you this, Ed, your honest opinion. Do you think Trump won in 2016 because he was just the bee's knees? Because he was just awesome? He put forth policies that were so amazing and all of this different stuff? Or do you think he won because HRC was a horrible candidate?
Yep. And he was an anomaly that nobody saw. He was what people had asked for, but on a level that was almost like a comic book character. And when I say a comic book character, I'm not saying to be disrespectful. I'm saying that, like, who wouldn't like to see something terrible happening and Superman come down and save everybody? Everybody would love to see that.
I've got you.
I've got you.
Who's got you?
You're right. Damn, you went back to 78.
Come on, bro.
Wow.
Come on, bro. Christopher Reeve.
Christopher Reeve is the original Superman. Henry Cavill's a close second, though.
Close second.
I mean, love him in that. But no, Trump was that anomaly, and I remember back in 15, I wrote an article for Wisconsin, Right Talk Wisconsin. It's no longer, it's just defunct at this point. But I talked about him being the bull in China shop that we needed during the primaries. And he shook it up.
Yep.
But he was that larger than life character. And who knew that eventually we probably should have seen it, where he became this cult of personality. And it was funny because going back to the first debates, my guy was Vivek. That was my guy. And the amount of shit that I got from people, oh, you're a never Trumper, you're a rhino. Well, first off, I always said I'm a conservative. So, I align more with Republicans because that's the best chance of getting elected. But call me what you will.
Yeah.
You're not hurting my feelings.
Yep.
But because of his status as an anomaly, because of his larger than life personality, Hillary Clinton was so horrible, so disliked.
Yep.
And I think what happened in 2020, with everything that went down, so many people were it was just mind-blowing to them that if you didn't back Trump faithfully, religiously, with such zeal, then there was something wrong with you.
There was something wrong. And that's what, and I'll say this. I love my local party. Okay. My local party, St. Croix County, good leadership, good people, salt of the earth people. And I'm not being facetious in any way. I truly believe that. I know them and they're good people. I've done work for them. But I made the comment, we did I think it was Lincoln, no, it was Reagan dinner last year. And they had a little area set up with, they're selling a bunch of stuff, right? T-shirts and all this different stuff. And I walked over and I'm looking at all the stuff and I go, and this was like when we were getting deep into primaries. And I go, where's the Vivek stuff? Where's the Bergram stuff? Right? Where's the Nikki Haley stuff? Because
it was all Trump.
It was all Trump stuff.
All Trump all day. Yeah.
Trump all day. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is you're automatically labeled XYZ ABC.
Yeah.
If you ask questions, if you ask about Operation Warp Speed, if we talk about Fauci, we talk about
the first 2 years of the Trump administration.
Yeah. And how it was a basic revolving door of people.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about the people that you selected to your cabinets. Jeff Sessions, I'm looking at you.
John Bolton.
Right. Let's have talks about those. And I'm not saying that in a way that you would say, let's have talks about them to, say how horrible or how, but I really want to know the thought process behind those. And I'm not, and again, I'm not saying I won't vote for the guy, but I see this blindly following. And if you say anything against this person, you're never Trump or you're a bad person. Well, you're this, that, and the other. I don't see it.
I had a conversation last year with Allie Schweitzer, and it was a great conversation. And she was talking about how she's a Trump girl, and she's like, "Well, what did he do that was bad?" So I broke it down, from year 1, year 2, the fact that he had a Congress that bought into the BS, the fact that he didn't see, how Paul Ryan and a lot of other folks just kind of hit him from the side because they didn't like his approach. The hiring of individuals like John Bolton, almost going to war with Iran, drone strikes. Those are all negatives.
Yeah.
Now, I can also give you, and this is where I think there's a level of dishonesty with people that essentially look at him as God, King, Emperor. You can't tell me his negatives. I can, but I can also acquiesce my stance to the point, like, look at what he did year 3, year 4.
Yeah.
Look at the economy, the Abraham Accords, no new wars, pulling us out of Afghanistan. If he had won re-election, that withdrawal from Afghanistan wouldn't have been that quagmire.
13 soldiers will most likely be alive today.
They would be 100%. I agree with
that. But you're right. It's how dare you question, right? And again, I see this all the time, and I see this, and it just it puts a chill. It puts a chill down my spine because I see he's the only one.
Right.
He's the only one that can
there's like 300 million people on this planet. There's nobody else.
And you're telling me out of 350, 360 million people, right, that he's the only one that can do that? We're having problems because the dude's in his 80s.
Right.
What now?
Well, and it's funny because people like Donald Trump Jr. No, we're enough with the legacy thing. Enough's enough. I mean, maybe if he wanted it, he could earn it. Right.
Please clap. Yeah. but no, you're exactly right. And what does, and so the argument that I've made that really nobody wants to talk about is, listen, he's got one term. He's got 4 years. And depending on what goes on in 26, will he have a Senate majority? Will he have a House majority? Will he be able to do anything? Or is it literally they hate him so much,
right,
that you get 4 years of nothing? Again, now let's talk about societal collapse there, pal.
You'll get 2 years of something, but if, let's say, the House and the Senate stays the same, let's go real hopeful. Let's give some hopium. We retain the Senate, or we get the Senate in 24. We maintain the House. It's still contentious. You still got the Mitt Romneys of the world in there. So it's
retiring,
not,
bro. Mitt's out.
He's out. Okay.
Mitt's
out. You have those in his likeness.
And McConnell's not going to be there anymore.
No, he won't. The turtle is going back to his shell.
Going home.
But let's assume that we win those. Historically, midterm elections never fare well for a sitting president.
Yep.
So then you get 2 years of what? A lame duck presidency, and then just nothing but executive orders. I mean, one way or the other, if I feel like we're going
to elevated? Who have we elevated for 28? Who did we not damage the hell out of during the primary season?
Right.
Who?
Well, let's go back to 22. There were people that were ultra mad because Rebecca Clayfish didn't go out and stump for Tim Michaels. Well, you know what? If I was Rebecca Clayfish, I wouldn't have done it either. Because do you remember that Trump rally in Waukesha where Trump came and he spoke, and then he also spoke and endorsed Adam Steen, and he called Rebecca Clayfish's husband. He called Rebecca a communist sympathizer.
Yeah.
And talked about the lobbying that Joel Clayfish does.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a minute. Then, of course, there's the controversy around surrounding her daughters and Justice Hagedorn's son. Yo, you want this? Fine. You talked all this shit about my family.
Do what you do.
Yep, that's
Figure
on you.
It out.
You wanted. I'm gonna be back here in the cut because I would have done the same thing. Like, there's one thing you want to beat up on me. Fine, all day, every day. But you drag the family into it. That's a whole nother matter.
It's a whole nother level.
And that's where, again, let's call balls and strikes. Let's talk about the good things he did, but also let's talk about the things he did dirty, the things he was foul about.
And that's just it. What you're probably, and I'm again, Magic 8 Ball, your Magic 8 Ball. What you're probably never gonna have happen is him go, I should have fired Fauci. All he's saying is, I couldn't fire Fauci. Right? Talking about Operation Warp Speed, talking about the jab, talking about the mRNA, talking about all this different stuff, right? And all this stuff that we know. I'm sorry, you guys, if people want to talk about the 2020 election, we can talk about the 2020 election all day long. Who was empowered during the 2020 election?
Right.
And you can call me naive, you can call me stupid, you can call me whatever you want. But here's the deal. If we can't have a robust discussion about what went wrong, we can't learn from what went wrong and chart a course into the future.
Absolutely.
And so when you have, and this is probably going to be the absolute lamest presidential election season that we're going to have ever, because it's two guys who already ran. They're not going to debate each other. They're both in their 80s. What are we going to get out of this?
Oh, no. Let me tell you why it's going to be lit.
It's because Michelle Obama's going to get involved.
No, it's going to be lit as fuck. And here's why. It's going to be lit because...
There's the problem right there.
Well, oh, God. I'm so sorry for you, man. We'll rectify that come May at convention. But no, here's why it's going to be lit. What's going to happen? I mean, not that I want violence or anything, but people are going to be tripping. People are going to be, acting out of pocket. People are going to be talking all kinds of mad, crazy trash. And for individuals like us, let's just keep it 100. It's to be great content because we're going to sit here and be able to talk about it.
Do you think it's going to be a surrogate war? Do you think I'm not
absolutely
asking that generally?
Absolutely,
it's going to be a surrogate war.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it'll grow people. I think it'll, because there are people that'll listen to me, that'll listen to you, there'll be crossover. You got people that are more elevated. You've got, the Steve Bannons of the world. You got Alex Jones, Tim Pool, all those other cats out there that are going to be talking about all this stuff. They're going to see a rise in their influence and the people paying attention to what they're saying and hearing their breakdowns.
Yeah.
I think all of us are going to do well in that context. But what people really need to hear is from the candidates talking to each other. They don't need to hear us interpreting what they said.
I don't think they're going to have that because it's in no one's best interest. Biden can't string two sentences together. I would be, it's funny how we forget. And if you're not a student of history, it's difficult to understand this, that there was a agreement with the press that they would never shoot FDR below the waist.
Absolutely.
Because nobody wanted him to know that he was either A, had the leg braces, okay, or that B, he was in a wheelchair most of the time. That was a standard agreement. And if you look at, the Inspiration Desk, the Britain gave us, it's the presidential desk right there.
Oh, the Resolute desk, yes.
The Resolute desk, yes. The front that was put on there it didn't used to be like that. The front was put on because of FDR, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about that because a lot of people don't understand that history. We don't talk about just the mixture of drugs that John F. Kennedy was on, because John F. Kennedy was in constant pain because of his military service. His back was broken, like I think like 4 or 5 different areas, right? And he was jacked up on medication all the time, right? People don't talk about that stuff. So I would be so curious to see what was the wonderful cocktail they gave Joe the night that he came out with the State of the Union.
Do you
that
remember?
Guy was all hopped up on Mountain
Do
Dew,
you remember
man.
that he would, like, how long did it take him to shuffle?
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
And I timed it. It was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes to shuffle in that. Now I get it. He was dapping people up, you know.
Yeah.
He was doing
the
thing.
pictures.
I totally get that.
Everybody does it.
But 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm sorry. And maybe
he was late.
Right.
He was
late. And that's why I say, because he didn't start till about 8:30. So he was late like 10 minutes. You know, and I get it. I like some theatrics. And I want a president that's going to come out like the Ultimate Warrior. Just shaking podiums and shit. You know, I would love to see that. But I know that's not the world we live in. Right. You know, press the Speaker of the House, you know, something.
Segue. I watched both WrestleManias at Sky Dome, and the first one was Hogan and Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
18 was Hogan and The Rock. I literally just watched those yesterday. I was like, Sky Dome, man. Come on, brother.
Ah, man. Yeah, The Rock is back. But yeah, he was, to his credit, keen. He had a couple slip-ups, but you know what? You're doing an hour speech. I totally expect that from anybody. But you look at the glaze in his eyes, and it was like, damn, son.
Yeah.
Like, not only are you that old man talking about get off my lawn.
Yeah.
But there's a reason we didn't see him for like 3-4 days, because he came down from like, I don't know what miracle drugs that was. That's like some next level space stuff that nobody knows about.
Yep. Well, it's funny. Have you ever seen? There's a documentary. I think it was mid 2010s, 2015 maybe. It was called Bigger, Faster, Stronger, and it was talking about steroids.
Heard of it.
Yeah, it's talking about steroid use, and talking about those things, and it was basically making the deal like, hey, you have these athletes, you have this stuff, and you know, this is the steroids, yet it's perfectly acceptable to take all the Adderall you can to stay up late so that you can study and do all these different things. Oh, have you seen the mixture of pills that they give fighter pilots when they're going on long flights?
Oh, yeah.
Just a mix of amphetamines, right, to keep them up, to keep them sharp, to keep them all things. And so you're looking at it going, number one, the speech was incredibly disjointed. If you really looked at the context of speech, when you're connecting concepts together, it was very disjointed. I don't know who wrote it, but I would probably say that should be their last time writing anything, you know.
Oh,
besides,
absolutely.
You know, Calvin and Hobbes in the funny papers, right?
Maybe a Hallmark card.
It was incredibly disjointed, but all they had to do was play the hits. What were the hits? Ukraine. What were the hits? Palestinians. What were the hits? Fascism, my predecessor, right? Going on, all of that different stuff. Pay your fair share, right?
Well, you notice they introduced that IVF, because nobody was talking about that prior to nobody. Now IVF was a thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody opposed to IVF.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I get it, you know, babies and everything, and you know, frozen, but nobody that I know. I know conservatives and liberals that are all for IVF.
Yeah.
So now you're conflating the issue.
Yep. And it's like you just had all of these, again, you know, it was you're playing the hits. You could literally take and this, okay, he hit that, yes, okay, he hit that, boom, 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 boom. And then you could almost time it when it was going to end, because there was no other talking points that he was going to be able to bring out. And then you were done, right? And it was just enough. It was, I honestly believe when history looks back at this time, and it looks back at that particular State of the Union, that State of the Union speech will be called the just enough speech.
Yeah.
The just enough State of the Union, because it was just enough to where he appeared cognizant enough to where now we don't have to do a change in the 7th inning in an election year.
Well, not only
I still think that's going to happen, but I'm a tinfoil hat guy.
Well, wait until convention. But I think you're right. I think it is just enough. It's just enough to make 30-second sound bites. It's just enough to do 30-second TikToks. It's just enough to have a 90-second YouTube short. It's just
it was just enough. And so then what do you get? And that's the thing. you know, I wrote this, shout out News Undone. I wrote this in News Undone, but one of the things I said was, who's the most important person? The man that walks in the room or gives the speech and they play Hail to the Chief? Or the man who made that person, wrote the speech, and made that guy walk into the room and give the speech? Who's the most
Absolutely.
important person there?
The man that made him.
So what do you get when 46 becomes 47? You just get a puppet for 4 more years. And then what? Kamala? This nation has a very, very short memory. 4 years of rehab on her image.
Well, and their bench is like so incredibly weak. It is. Yeah. There's no stars rising up in there. What do you got? Gavin Newsom. Stacey Abrams going to come back from the grave. Yeah. What are you going to get? Fannie Willis?
Because you're not going for Bernie. Because Bernie's like 105 years old. He's not going to do it.
Bernie might still be alive. I mean,
did you see Bernie had the mask? Did you see that?
He did.
And he had the mask. I was like, oh my God.
I was trying to figure that one out. I was trying to figure that one out. It's like, dude, you sitting there with a mask? Like,
seriously?
This is what we're doing.
I'm sitting next to Elizabeth Warren, and she farts a lot, so I have the mask. That could have been, I don't know.
You know
this
what?
This is pure speculation.
Then I totally understand. I get it.
I get it.
Let's make this a little more local here. Recall Voss. Let's break that down, because
what's the first thing that comes to my mind when you hear recall Voss? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Write me letters. Tell me how dumb I am. We have 2-year terms for a reason.
Right.
The people in that district decided they just didn't want what you guys were selling, and here we are.
To me, I think it just further expands upon the fact that as a conservative movement here in Wisconsin, and I'm not even throwing shade at RPW, because a lot of the people that were backers of RPW, or not backers, backers of the recall Voss effort, they're the ones that want to like throw flames at RPW. And it's like, oh no, that has nothing to do with RPW.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with you not running a good enough candidate. So you decide you're going to recall. You try to take down the king, and you failed during the primary. Now they'll say, well, he only won by 260 votes. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
A win by 1 is still a win. Okay, fine. He won his general by what, 70%?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So now we're going to recall him, and then you further make the rest of the state look like a bunch of assholes. Like we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't enough that we lost what should have been a gimme in 22 with the governor's race. Like Tony Evers should not, like literally Tim Michaels should have been able to win this race. As bad of a candidate as he was. As a matter of fact,
everybody who voted for Ron Johnson, just goes down 1.
Yep. And, well, and it's funny because as a result of that, Eric Toney lost the AG.
Yep.
Eric should not have lost. That should have been a walk in the park.
Yep.
But a bad candidate will bring down the rest of the ticket.
Yep.
And
that's the interesting thing. And I know that again, I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I'm not saying, whatever, but I'm saying is this. I like Adam. I interviewed Adam 2 or 3 times on my particular show. Enjoyed him. He's a good guy. Okay. But you didn't get it done, dude. I'm sorry. It didn't happen. Okay.
Yep.
So then what? The people of that district chose this person. And now what?
Right. When I look at the recall, the recall effort.
Maybe I'm just simple. Maybe I'm just not that wise. I'm not that smart. I'm just not. I can concede that.
I thought about that too. I thought about that too, but then I stepped back, and like I said on Tuesday, full disclosure, I know Robin Voss. I've talked to Robin Voss. I've interviewed Robin Voss. As a matter of fact, I was one of the first people to interview Adam Steen. I'm not going to say I was the first, but I know I was one of the first people to interview him.
Yeah.
And, in such a contentious election in the 63rd, my thinking was, I want to talk to them both.
Yeah.
It's a hot button thing.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should.
And I got along great with both of them. But then you fast forward to the recall effort. What was the plan going forward? You recall him, and then what? Where was the candidate? Where was the face of the movement? Where was the person who was that you were going to run in this recall?
Yeah, because I didn't see a recall Voss vote for Billy or whoever.
Right.
And it kind of begs the question, and I'm sorry, again, y'all gonna piss off me. Y'all just making this shit up as you go along, or what?
Right.
It doesn't seem to be a plan here, guys.
Well, and that was the thing. There was no plan other than we don't like him, we hate him, and this is emotional. And that's where I saw that. It just became completely emotional. And I think as a byproduct of that, it makes the conservative movement and Republican Party look bad. And that's, again, it's not an RPW thing.
Yeah.
Again, these are the same people that are still going to be mad with RPW. But again, RPW is a private organization, newsflash, and they can do what they want. They have a board, they hire who they want, they do how they want, and they set the rules for your county parties.
So I just finished watching Masters of the Air. Masters of the Air, Apple TV. You know, it's the third series. Band of Brothers, Pacific, Masters of the Air. Fairly good show. Fairly good show. And they get to the end, and the end is the end, right? It's the end of World War II. And one of the guys quotes a famous poet, and I don't remember who he quoted, but he basically said, "Listen," he said, "Hey, careful when you're going out and killing monsters that you don't become a monster yourself." And that's just kind of subtly, you know, it's like, careful that thing that you decided that you wanted to so badly to destroy, that at all costs you become that thing that you were trying to destroy. I have a hard time with that.
Well, and I'm big into like comic book lore and everything else. I grew up, with Marvel and DC comics, and when Image came out with Spawn and all that good stuff. Absolutely love it. I haven't gotten to the Rippaverse yet, but what's the one that's on Amazon? Invincible. Freaking love that series.
Yeah.
But what's the line from Batman? You remember what I think it was the second Batman movie with Christian Bale? You live long enough.
Not the best Batman, but okay, we can have that conversation.
Right. Well, we should have that conversation. I think there might be a better one, but he did play a good Bruce Wayne too. But what did he say? You either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain.
Yep.
And I think it's in that same light. And that's
because it's such a fine line.
Yeah.
It is such a fine line to where I'm doing my thing. I'm taking care of this. I'm doing that. And then you go past that, and now you've become that thing that you hate because you got to keep the power. You got to keep this at all costs. Or you got to make the change at all costs.
Well, and I think that's where, when you have a politician who comes in for seemingly the right reasons, they get entrenched into the system, they learn the system, they hang on to the system, they are part of the system now. And at what point, this is where I think it becomes wiser. If you have somebody who's, again, a representative, generally 2-year terms, around 6, 7, 8, maybe you should be grooming your successor and saying, you know what, I've been here a decade. That was never the intention for our founders. I'm out, but let me tell you who I'm backing.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get the job done in 10 years, now understand you have to work with other people and convince folks and stuff, but to make it a career, 20,
that was never
30,
the intent.
40.
Yeah, that was never the intent. I mean, how long? I mean, I grew up in Southern California, the People's Republic of Southern California, and it was always Dianne Feinstein, and then when I was growing up as Barbara Boxer, I was in the 80s.
Yeah,
Dianne Feinstein. So we're talking 40 plus years, and she had already been a United States senator for, I think, 1 or 2 terms before that. And she finally died off in her late 90s. I mean, we saw the video when she's sitting there and because she's old,
and
and they're going, "Say yay, Dianne, say yay, say yay, say yay, Dianne."
Right.
This is not at all what the founders wanted. Not at all.
No, the idea of a career politician like that, and like I said, I get it. This is a system that we're working with.
Yeah.
But I think there comes a point where you have to realize that if I continue down this path, what am I going to become? And granted, nobody should ever be the same person they were, say, 10 years ago, using the example I've given. But it's like, how different am I?
Yeah.
Can I function in a better capacity, a larger capacity than what I was doing here? For example, I was part of I still am in the county party, but I was the vice chair. There was very little I could do there. But as one person here, I can do so much more.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm really on the struggle bus right now with seeing things, and the whole top of this program talking about societal collapse and what that looks
Yeah.
like. And I kind of look at it as you only have so much time, you only have so much effort, you only have so much money. What have I been given to take care of? And
Hmm.
truly the only thing that I've been given to take care of and oversight of and protection of is my wife and my kids.
Right.
And the only other person I'll add to that is my mother-in-law, because I made a promise to my father-in-law literally the day he died that I would take care of her.
Absolutely.
So yes, there are things going on, but at some point it's like, this is broken. It's time to circle the wagons on our survival,
Right.
because this isn't going anywhere good. And that's the sad part, because you want to be involved. You want to be involved in this process. Politics is so fascinating.
Hmm.
Politics is the most fascinating thing that I've ever gotten the opportunity to be a part of, and even just as
Yeah.
a small role. I'm nobody in a very, very large fish pond. Like, I get that, right?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
looking at it from the outside, and understanding human nature, and understanding where people's focuses are, and really who's there to help and who's there not to help, and understanding the complex issues that we're dealing with, it's amazing. But on some level, in the back of my mind, I'm just, where are we headed? I don't think we're headed anywhere good.
Right.
Because again, top of the show, what were we talking about? 46 wins,
Well, there's
complete chaos.
you're looking at civil
45 wins.
you're looking at civil unrest no matter how you slice this.
Yep. So then what? Because I know for a fact that all of those Democratic cities in 2020 that were boarding up all of their businesses, if you remember that,
Oh,
they
the
were
ones
boarding
that
up their
was
businesses.
they put spray paint or signs on their windows saying, "Don't burn me down. I support you."
Yeah. Because if the anticipation was, if this person wins, it's going to be
Right.
total craziness,
Well, and
right?
unfortunately, it was generally speaking, if a Democrat won or some Democrat issue didn't go the way they wanted, no, there's going to be a fire. There's going to
Now,
be a
now
riot.
let
There's going
now
to be
let me
something
ask you this:
sideways.
do you think we see the old switcheroo in Chicago? Because I'm listening, I'm watching, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, you got San Francisco playing the Kansas City Chiefs. What
Hmm.
happens if a week before they just dropped in the Packers for the hell of it? So now, right, the presumptive Republican nominee is going, I'm preparing for this, I'm preparing for this. And then all of a sudden, one fell swoop, oh shit, we're preparing for something different. What then? And people, it's something that is being talked about, because if there is one person in the Democratic Party that has the highest possible polling numbers,
Hmm.
it's Michelle Obama.
But she doesn't want it, or at least that's what's being said right now.
I think that's what's being said, because we got probably a couple more months for them to figure out, honestly, what we're talking about here. We're talking about a Kamala issue,
But you
because
get,
you
yeah,
can't
oh,
play identity
absolutely.
politics. You can't play identity politics and not give it to the black chick that was vice president
Well,
if
and
Joe's gone.
nobody likes Kamala. I mean, you
She
look at her
she she
polling
polls
numbers;
even she
they're
polls even worse than
horrible.
Joe. She
Right.
polls even worse than Joe. So what does that ticket look like? I think that's the only X factor going with Michelle, right? But she polls better. She polls better along suburban white women,
Yep.
right? You're definitely going to get anybody associated with the Oprah crowd.
Oh, the
Now
Oprah crowd.
you get the White House. You get the White House. You get the
Everyone
White House.
gets a
You
White
get the White
House.
House, right? So
But
does
it,
Sleepy
but
Joe get put out to pasture? You let Kamala be president for 6 months, and then we usher in another Obama?
well, and that's the question. At that point, if Kamala is president for 6 months, whatever it is, Joe has some kind of health crisis or mental collapse, whatever, and make it perfectly clear, I don't want anybody dying, but
No, of
at
course not.
80, 81 years old,
Yeah.
you have less days left on the planet than you
You
have
do. You
behind you.
do. I mean, a good set of 4 or 5 stairs, honestly, is like a John Wilkes Booth for
Oh,
President Biden. I just want to say that.
right.
And now
100%.
the Secret Service at my house. Great.
Well,
Yeah, there you go.
I think they might be upstairs already. Um, no, but what's the popularity of Kamala?
Yeah.
Kamala is not well liked. She doesn't speak very well. and she's got that really nervous laugh,
I
that
love
cackle.
yellow school buses. Venn
Right.
diagrams.
And it's like, what do diagrams and buses have to do? Okay, whatever. Now, it's been reported that Michelle doesn't want it because she saw all the crap that Barack had to go through.
Yep.
If we are to believe that, then who does that leave us? Because that would be the smarter play if she was on board.
Yep.
That would make it competitive. But
that would make it competitive as hell.
Right.
So then let me ask you this, because Joe steps aside, right? We had the 25th Amendment with the cabinet. Jill comes out, Joe steps down, whatever the case may be. The Democratic Party will now and forever have the two greatest things, if we're talking about identity politics, the two greatest things you can have in identity politics. We got the first black man elected.
Yep.
When we got the first woman president, who also happens to be black.
Yeah.
Even if she's only there for 6 months. And maybe that was the understanding in the beginning. Listen, you're going to do this a couple years. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to move into 1600 pen. History is always going to remember you as the first female president.
Well, and it's interesting because I think they'll be able to rewrite history enough, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people on the left that don't see her as black. They see her, was she Jamaican?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's still an offshoot of, the imported black slaves from that time.
Yep.
And it's like, no, it's Jamaican. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to hear those split hairs that way.
Yep.
So,
but then you can own, as a party, you can own those things.
You can own it
in a day. And what are we still? And what is the conservative Republican still running? Rich white dude.
Rich white dudes. Yep.
Who's going to pick who? And that's a great conversation too. Who does Trump pick? Because you got to know that the ultimate person who picks his vice president is going to be set up for 28.
Did you hear the latest rumor? Did you hear the rumor tonight?
Oh boy,
Marco Rubio.
My little Marco. He's not going to be able to do anything with little Marco. Plus, he can't do Marco because they can't be from the same state. That's a law in Florida. You can't do it unless he declares residency in New Jersey.
Oh, you might do it in New York.
But Brian Donaldson has been floated. But that again creates another problem, because you can't have a president, vice president from the same state, which is a horrible rule. I mean, it should be the people that are qualified, but we don't get that all the time. But I mean, you look at who we're really talking about. We're talking about maybe Marco, right? We're talking about Kristi Noem.
Yep.
Right, from South Dakota. Talked about her.
Absolutely.
Tim Scott. Right.
I am not a fan of Tim Scott.
Tim Scott's low energy. That's why he's just not really.
Well, I just see, and it's not to say he's not an intelligent man. He's extremely intelligent.
Oh yeah.
My problem with Tim Scott is just like, he just seems like, I don't know. I just feel like he's there just for the ride.
Yeah,
we're gonna get rusted.
Who does then Trump bring in? Because okay, you got him as a presumptive nominee. I think we've even gone past that 1,250 threshold. Last Tuesday with the last. So I mean, we're in like Flintstone, like Donkey Kong. That's where we're going, right? So who does he pick? Because whoever he picks, one, we're still talking about an 80-plus-year-old man,
right?
I get that, right? Trump is definitely in a different position than Sleepy Joe is. I get that, but who are we looking at, and who does he need? He needs somebody from a state that's going to help support and bring him votes. Who does that look like? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas?
But I don't see enough energy there.
Maybe, but press secretary. And what is the one thing that Trump just values above all else? The reason why we will never hear from Mike Pence again.
Well, loyalty. And I think he looks for loyalty, and and I think that there's a problem there, because let's say he picks Vivek, right?
Yeah.
Now Vivek is certainly a 2.0 version of him, but is he going to add to the ticket in terms of votes? And I don't know
exactly. Who is he bringing?
I think he needs to find that this individual who can ride both sides of this lane.
Yeah.
In aisle 8, there's establishment on one side. There is, the Trump MAGA on the other side, and the only person that can walk down that aisle should be that candidate.
Well, and why did Trump pick Pence instead of Christie in 2016? One, because Christie's a douchebag. Okay,
Yep.
let's just be honest. All
Right.
right, Christie is a douchebag, but he knew that Mike Pence was solid for Christian evangelicals who were upset about the grab the pussy thing.
Right.
He needed to shore that up, and the thought process was: here we got Mike Pence, governor of Indiana, and we're going to bring him in to shore that up because he needed Christian conservative votes.
Well, not only that, but Mike Pence is a very eloquent speaker.
Yep.
And he was also a conservative talk show host.
Been around.
So he was able to talk these things up,
Yep.
and it made perfect sense. It was a great
Yes.
blend together. And
Yep.
it wasn't somebody he went head to head with in the primary. Now, I think it's different this time around because, well, Trump really didn't go head to head with anybody.
He didn't need to.
Trump went from the position of FU because he was like 30 points. Now, I have a problem with that because my thing was, yeah, you were former president, but you still need to earn the primary. Now, once everybody dropped out, there is no issue. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. That's the guy.
But who does he pick? And that's I think going to be, as we get further into April, May, probably should have some understanding of where we're going. May, June-ish, I would say by Memorial Day, right? You should kind of have an understanding of what that ticket's going to be. But you got to think, how does he bring it? Who does he bring that is going to go out there, bang the drum, be loyal, raise the money? Because let's just talk, this guy needs money now, right?
Right. So look at the fundraising numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing there?
Is
it Christy Nome?
See, and I don't know if it's Christy Nome because I don't know if she bridges that gap.
But she'll be a much better looking female version of Mike Pence because she's going to bring the hardworking Christian conservative female vote. Because when they're talking about all of the felonies and all of the stuff and all the bad stuff, she can basically say, no, I believe in him. I believe in him, blah, 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 blah. I just don't know, man.
Let me throw a wild one out here, and I just thought about this. Let's say Trump has some backroom conversations and he rebuilds some bridges. What about somebody like Kylie McEnany?
Yeah. I mean,
and the reason I think about her, an effective communicator.
Yeah.
Very easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
And I point that out specifically because the average person, you gravitate to somebody who's good looking, man or woman.
Yeah.
That is just a natural fact.
Well, you have to look presidential. I mean, go back years and years and years and years. And I've said this before on my show as well. Go back years and years. If you listen to Haley, I'm going to vomit right now in my shoes if we talk about Nikki Haley. I'm sorry. It's not. No, ever. No, won't be. No, but go back decades. Go back to when Nixon debated John F. Kennedy, right?
Yeah.
John F. Kennedy looked great.
Nixon
had, I believe it was a knee injury. The guy was sweating. Okay. Yeah. He was wearing no makeup. And people who listened to it thought Nixon won. People who saw it think that Kennedy won, right?
Absolutely.
So again, there is this presidential look. Yeah. Right. You have to look presidential. I mean, think about the horrible things that Biden said about Barack Obama. I mean, we finally got a good candidate who's a black guy who's articulate and clean.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Well, and it's funny because how many people gave him a pass, especially within minority communities, when they gave him a pass for that. Yeah. They gave him a pass for the 94 crime bill, which that's a whole other topic. I actually agree with because you haven't been there in the 90s.
You ain't black if you won't for me.
There you go. That was the other one.
Yeah. Well, they're going to put you in chains.
Charlemagne the God's going to give him a pass for that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Or when Hillary Clinton broke out some hot sauce.
Come on, man. I'll do you, Joe Biden. Come on, man.
I need that clip. I really got to get a soundboard. I was working on some stuff last night, and I got some other stuff. So, some Kevin Samuels, Stop the Cap. Got a lot of stuff coming up here, but oh man, we are almost 2 hours into this. I told my wife I wasn't going to do 2 hours.
Man.
And You know what she told me?
And you know what show prep for your prep is? I basically read the Encyclopedia Britannica today because I didn't know what the hell we were going to talk about.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because depending on my guest, it can be my show prep is really weird because if I know it's a candidate, okay, let me read their profile.
Yeah,
Let me
let's talk
do,
about the issues.
let me do a Google search. Let me look up the YouTube on anything you got out there.
Yeah,
And then, let's delve into a little bit of LexisNexis. Cool. Then I deal with someone like you. Fuck.
We could
It's
just start
like,
talking about wrestling here in a minute. We could talk about the 90s.
well, right. It's like it's gonna go all over the place. I got like, let's see, how many? I got like 10 windows open up right now where I could have gone either way. We could do minority issues, fight, obesity being discriminatory.
I mean, we
We
first
got
started this whole conversation talking about bourbon.
well, we
Come
talked
on.
about bourbon, the collapse of society. We didn't even like go as deep as I wanted to. There was some, and it's like, well, you know what? The conversation's going to go where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know people that do this and they're like, well, you only got 4 people watching because you can see like how many people are watching on your stream.
Of course.
And it's like, yeah, but there's a lot more on the back end and I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for the people that are watching afterwards.
Yeah.
And you see these conversations that are raw, fresh, and organic. And again, I treat the conversations different. You get a candidate, I'm have a polo button-up shirt. You won't see me smoking on air.
Play the role.
Well, I mean, you've got mirroring.
Listen, that's why my show is audio only, buddy. Because I'm like sitting here, crazy hat hair, just
right. And that's why when I tell people, it's like, hey, can we have you speak at this event? Yo, you are aware of the shit that comes out of my mouth, right? Oh no, we know. All right, bet. All right, game on. Speaking of which, I will be the keynote speaker for the Marquette County Republican Party's Lincoln Day dinner. They're going to have that in Montello, and the venue is to be determined still, but it is going to be down there April 6th. I believe the start time is 12 p.m. April 6th, and I'm actually excited. I'm looking forward to it because I want to talk about people like you, me, folks that are out here as one person making a difference. And I think everybody should have a platform like this. Because it is amazing when you do that.
Hoorah, devil dog.
When you do this platform like this, when you get yourself to a point, and again, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and then you should. But when you see behind the curtain, you realize that the great and powerful Oz is not as great and powerful as you think he is. You realize absolutely. And you also realize that evil organization, RPW, they're not a bunch of supervillains sitting in a back room with smoking cigars. They're trying to find their way just the same as you, me, and everybody else.
But it's much easier to vilify.
It is
than to really try, and that's where I struggle. It's like, why are we not asking the questions? Why are we not having the conversations? Again, we can disagree on some things.
Yeah,
doesn't mean I got to hate you. Doesn't mean you got to hate me. But I think at the end of the day, you're 1,000% right. They're not super villains. They're just trying to make a way, just like I'm trying to make a way and you're trying to make a way. We're trying to connect.
And I think these conversations like this become that much more important. Like when we have, and I wanted to bring Orlando on tonight. The only thing that held me back from it was that if you, me, and Orlando were doing a show tonight, that would have been 4 hours easy. And I have a few things I have to do tonight. I have to. So I didn't want to go beyond 2 hours, 10 minutes. My wife's going to kick me right in the throat. But, that was the thing. When we have these conversations like that, I think it becomes very important, especially amongst conservatives. And Tuesday, I had a gentleman on. He more of a left-leaning individual, but we had so much in common. And again, can we find more of what we have in common than what we don't?
Yeah.
And
I worked at a company.
Let me just finish this point here real quick. Let me just finish this real quick. Even as conservatives, you and I don't have to agree 100%.
Yeah.
But if I understand where you're coming from, you understand where I'm coming from, that's enough. And because if we have that understanding, we will understand that we have more in common than we don't. And that what you don't, we at least have the understanding philosophically where that comes from.
Yep. I worked with a guy and he was very, very open about his very, very leftist, very, very socialist. And he would literally come and sit in my office. Mind you, we should be working. Let's just be honest. But he'd come and sit in my office, and we would talk. We would talk
Yeah.
about economics. We would talk about families. We talk about social issues, and everything that we talked about. I would look at him. I'd be like, "Dude, listen, you're full of shit, bro. Let me
Right.
tell you why." And he would same thing back, right? But I never hated him. There was one time when I said some things that in the way I said it, I had to go back and I was like, "Hey, listen, that wasn't cool, man. We
Yeah.
have a good relationship, and I really hope that didn't sully that." And he's like, "No, we're good. People get passionate, whatever." But again, it's sitting down and having those conversations and learning that what we're probably a little bit more alike than we'd like to say we are. And
Right.
when we silo ourselves and we refuse to have conversations, that's when I think the collapse is coming.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the collapse is expedited.
Yeah. Well,
Because
and
they're no longer human beings anymore. We're just thoughts.
well, again, yeah, they demonize MAGA, they demonize whatever is on the left. What happened during, in Nazi Germany when you remember all those caricatures and everything of Jews and everything, the letterheads they would post in the walls and stuff, they made them look less than human. Go back and look at Warner Brothers with, Bugs Bunny and with the war effort. Look at what they did, how they made the Japanese look.
Yep.
It was dehumanizing. And why do they do this historically? Why do you dehumanize your enemies? To make it easier to unalive them.
Yep.
And dear God in heaven, I hope that does not come to pass, but why else would you want to
you can
dehumanize?
see where this is going.
Right. The writing is on the wall. A blind man can see it in a drive-through. By the way, why do they have Braille in a drive-through?
I never understood that.
I mean, I saw that at
Understood
ATM.
why. I also know that I worked for a church a long time ago, and we got a brand new building, and they had the numbers, and
Yeah.
this is room 108, 110, whatever, and the sanctuary was at the very top of the door, and it was still in Braille. It says sanctuary, and it was probably like, if you're 9 feet tall and reaching up there to read it,
great.
These are those things that make you go, Only a certain amount of people are going to get that reference.
I was going to say that's a reference to the early 80s, folks. CNC. Anyway, so let's close this out here tonight. We went over a lot of different topics, and God, we could, like I said, there's so much more we can do. Mike, I would definitely want to invite you back, and I want to start doing more of a roundtable discussion. I want to bring on folks like yourself, Orlando Owens, Scarlett Johnson, Ian C. Jordan. Although I think we need to have like a physical referee between Ian and Orlando. And I love you both. I love you both.
I'm watching from afar, and I just there's a certain part of me with that whole situation that my heart grieves. My heart grieves because it just
doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be, and I understand. I understand it. That's the problem. I'm not going to sit here and say one person's bad, one person's right, one person's evil, one person's whatever. There's my mother was diagnosed with a disease called NASH, which is basically it affects your liver. She's not an alcoholic, and there's a very real possibility that sometime in the near future, my mom may go home and be with Jesus, and that has rocked me to the point where this could be my last day. Who knows? Why life is so short for what we're arguing over what.
Yeah.
What are we doing, man? I have no reason to know you, Ed Delgado. No reason to know you. We just connected over the interwebs, right?
Mm-hmm. And a positive of social media.
Right. And why would I want to spend my time hating on you? There's no reason for me to know you. I'm just going to enjoy your presence, enjoy having you in my life. And the same thing for these other people. Why hate a person? Why go to that extreme length?
Well, and it's interesting, last year I lost both my parents.
Yeah.
And, it was one right after another. My father passed in May. My
relatively short time. I remember that.
And, January was just a real dark month for me because I didn't do nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. Yeah. And then, February got back up on there. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Orlando. And as I reflected on things in January, it was like, damn, I have less years ahead of me than I do behind me. So you know what? I'm not playing with you.
Yeah.
If you call me, pick your pejorative, fine, okay, I'm whatever you want me to be. But if you're not adding to the conversation, I'm cutting you loose. I'm not dealing with that.
Because there's no need, because time is
No,
so limited.
you know, I'm looking at going forward a building empire, as I think what you're talking about. You know, you want to build up on these things for your family, for your children, for the world that we leave behind them. Because what is it that we leave behind for our kids? What is their inheritance? What is the legacy we give them? It's a better world.
Yep.
And if we can't give them that better world, then we fail them as parents.
And what are we doing?
Right. And I think that's why you have the advocacy of people like yourself, the Freeman Report, the Drayden Wire, Rundown Live. That's why you have all these things happening, because we want something better that we can leave for our children, other than just what you get the house. That's
And the
great.
taxes that come with it. Come on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, taxes. We'll circle back to that there, Rustin. But I want to give you the last word here, Mike, as we close this out, because, like I said, if I don't get upstairs here very soon, my wife is going to beat me, and I don't want to be beaten by an Oompa Loompa.
There you go.
Jen, I'm sorry I didn't say that out loud. My bad.
Ed, thank you so much for inviting me on. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk. It's always a pleasure to be authentic and be real and have a place to do that. I just look at the state of our state. I look at the state of our country, and there's got to be more. There's got to be more. There's got to be more. What it's going to take is conversations. It's going to take people realizing we have so much more in common than we do. Being apart from each other. And how do we build this? How do we do this? How do we take these principles that we know are winning principles, good conservative principles? How do we make them palatable? How do we understand, how people see us? How can we win elections? How can we govern? And when I talk about govern, I'm not talking about anything that's, how do we get our agenda and how do we make this world a better place? So that's why I'm here. And I appreciate you giving me the platform. It's been an absolute pleasure. Anytime you want to connect, I'm down. Let's do it.
No, and I love that, because I think, we should do more of these conversations, whether it be on this platform. And I've been moving more toward the video platform, and it has been wonderful. So, and by the way, we are streaming here on Facebook page. We are streaming on X and YouTube. At this point, we're only streaming on Facebook and YouTube, because X, I think, only has like 1 hour, as does Instagram, at a time.
Oh, that's just getting warmed up, man.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's the warm up, right? Okay. Whatever, guys. But all right, Mike, thank you for joining here tonight. Make sure you check him out, MikeGrajeda.com. Mike is Always Right podcast. Look for new episodes that drop, because I know Mike's got things. Mike, you got stuff in the hopper, don't you?
I got stuff to say.
Oh, man. It's going to be lit. It's going to be lit.
All right, buddy.
All right, Mike. Good night, brother. Yeah, I know. Got to close it out, though. All right, guys. That was Mike Grajeda. Thank you very much for joining here tonight. Thank you guys all for joining in the chat room, watching live, and then, of course, watching in the archives. I really do appreciate that. Take this conversation that we broke down here tonight and process it for yourselves. Look at all the various things happening. Look at what potentially could be happening. Yes, we talked a little bit about societal collapse and what you could potentially do, but also look at what you can do to, how do you say it? Take care of not just societal collapse, but bad weather, power outages, things like that. They're one and the same. But also move yourself forward. What happens in this 24 election cycle if, say, Biden wins again? Are we going to continue to deal with inflation at a level that we've never seen before? Are we going to be able to afford to feed our families? Are we going to be able to afford to housing, heat, energy costs? We talked about this in great length here this past Tuesday as we reported the CPI and PPI numbers. This is important. At the end of the day, it's really all about the economy. So we need to look at things like that. We need to look at things like culture. What are you doing as a Republican, as a conservative? Are you doing things culturally to help out? Do you have a story that you need to put out into the world? Why am I talking about a story in particular? Well, the left control all the cultural institutions, everything from music, television, movies, books. What are we doing? That might be somewhere you have an impact. Then take into account, what are you doing on your local level? Are you potentially looking to run for an office? Well, you know what? Take the plunge and do it. Maybe you want to get involved in your county party. Maybe you want to get involved into a patriot movement. Maybe you want to get involved somehow and, I don't know, write letters to the editor. Maybe you want to start your own podcast. Maybe you want to find a way where you can be more effective. Get involved in your school boards, your local county, village, town, city. These are all things we can do. This can help turn the tide. And then, of course, living through example. These are things Mike and I have talked about at length, and I hope you guys had an opportunity to process that. And I want to thank you guys for joining me here tonight. And we're going to talk more here. I'll probably have another episode coming up this weekend. And look forward to more conversations. Stacey Klein, she's running for U.S. Senate, but I have some inside knowledge on that we will be talking about. And Stacey's a phenomenal individual. We'll talk to her, get things set up. We'll have David King on here. I know he had some things going on last week, which we couldn't have him on. So we'll bring him on as well, too. And I got more other folks here in the hopper, Ali Schweitzer and others. So on that note, good night. God bless you. God bless the USA. God bless Wisconsin. I'm out.